Welcome to Detroit's Darkest Times. Today's segment is on Detroit City. What's happening today in Detroit City? Donald Trump is going to be there at the Motor City Casino. This is on Grand River. And he's supposed to be talking about the economic situation and the economy, things of that nature. So those of you that support him might want to go check that out if you're in Detroit City. I believe he might be talking around about 2 o'clock today. So check that out. See what he's got to say about the city. And certainly he's going to be impressed with the city, I would think. All the things that's took place over the recent years. And he was there some time ago. But now he should have a different outlook on the city. I'm not for sure. You know what I mean? You just never know what somebody's going to say. But in our eyes, Detroit City has came a long ways. Got a good mayor. And she's going to support the people of the city, no matter what category you're in. So that's a positive thing that she does, and she's going to do. And this is Mary Sheffield. We really appreciate her being the mayor at Detroit's Darkest Times. She's just full of positivity and bright days to come while she's in office. But we just wanted to let y'all know that Trump is going to be in Detroit City at the Motor City Casino. And so those of you that's not aware, if you want to go check it out, that'd be something to do today. See what he's got to say if you want to be there in person. If not, I guess you could catch it on the news later on today. And but our thoughts that he's going to have some positive things to say because Detroit's growing in a positive way. And things of that nature. I also want to say this Motor City Casino used to be Wonder Bread, where they make Wonder Bread. And back in the day, that's one of my old neighborhoods. I actually live like, if you're standing on Grand River, I live like behind the Wonder Bread Bakery, which is the Motor City Casino. And I lived a period of time on Elm Street. And those of you that just want to check out the city and ain't never been here, you can always download Google Earth on your computer, and you can just punch in Motor City Casino, and then it'll pop up. Then you can actually, on the internet, actually go through the neighborhoods or go down the street or whatever, just to see what the situation is like. But in that area, I've lived in different places, but I have lived behind the Wonder Bread factory. And also, I lived on Trumbull and Selden. I lived on Trumbull and Canfield. So them are some areas. They're close by. You could walk it if you had to. These areas I'm talking about. But yeah, it's pretty cool that the city is coming back like it is, growing in a positive way. And I also wanted to, on this segment, I also want to tell y'all some crazy things that I did in Detroit City. Just some of the things. One of the things is me and a friend of mine was riding bikes one time, and we rode downtown to the Ambassador Bridge, and we was going to attempt to go across the bridge on our bikes, but they wouldn't let us. And we're young teenagers at this time, so really it was a bad thought, because that would have been a long way across. But the border control wasn't having it anyway. They wasn't going to let us do it, but we attempted to do it, you know. Yeah, another crazy thing, in the Renaissance Center, we used to ride the hotel elevators in the Renaissance Center. One time we get way up on, I think it's like 70th floor or something like that. We get off, and then we decided, it's me and a group of guys, my friends and stuff like that. And we decide we're going to go down a staircase. And we're all like, huffing it down the staircase of the hotel. But then it kind of got like, I don't know if they had good air ventilation in the staircasing, or if it was just us, because we was young at the time. But you got where you couldn't hardly breathe. So then it tried to open the door, and you couldn't open the door from the staircase way to go inside the hotel. So then, everybody on different floors would just knock on the door, and then when somebody finally opened one of the doors, and then they yelled for everybody, and we all got out that way, because there was no way we was going to be able to make it 70 stories all the way down to the ground level. And so luckily, that was the idea we had, just banging on the door until somebody opened the door, because eventually on one floor, there's going to be somebody walking down the hallway or something. And that's what took place. But that was really a crazy idea, as some young guys that's just some thing that we did at the hotel at the Renaissance Center. And then we also rode bikes from Trumbull all the way down to the Renaissance at Cobo Hall. Then we rode from near all the way to Belle Isle Island. And like I said, if you're not familiar with this place, you can Google Earth and see what the distance is. It's a long distance. But you'd be gone all day long, and that's what we did. We'd be gone all day long. We'd leave out in the morning and come back, late in the day. But really, that was a crazy experience too, because really it was just too far to go, but we did it anyways. And we used to ride up to Cobo Hall and go up to, they had a parking lot on the top of Cobo Hall. And then they had like a corkscrew ramp that takes you up to it. And we all used to ride bikes over there. And one friend of mine we was coming down from the parking lot. And one friend of mine had a bike. It didn't have no brakes on it. And he actually used his foot to stop the back wheel. We're all going around this corkscrew ramp coming off the top of Cobo Hall. And he was going so fast, he tried to get it to slow down, but he actually ran into the wall at the bottom and bent the front tire of his bike. And then we all had to figure out how to haul this bike back to the neighborhood. So that was a task in itself, because we finally did it, but a guy decided he was going to put it on the handlebars and just ride the bike like that. And but we just did, as young guys, we did some crazy things in the city of Detroit back in the day, and one time me and a friend of mine was yelling out of a car. We was dressed up in, because what had happened is we had a garage that we would have garage sales on Otis and Livernois behind the Big D's bar. And we used to sell, all different kinds of stuff, clothes, and we'd sell other people's stuff if they brought it to us and tell us how much they wanted for it, and we'd add a little money to it. We'd sell it for people. But anyways, we had these suits, these grown men suits with hats, the ties, the shoes, all that. And me and a friend of mine dressed up in these suits, and basically to make people laugh in the neighborhood and stuff. But anyway, we jump in this car and ride with this dude to the pizzeria. And as we're going to the pizzeria, there's a couple hookers walking down the street on Military toward Michigan Avenue. So we're just messing around, clowning around and stuff, and we're like young teenagers. And we yelling out the window at the hookers, and then next thing we know, this unmarked police car turns his lights on, and he had lights on the windshield. And he turns his lights on, pulls the dude over that we was with, and he tells the dude, he's like, "You're going to have to keep your passengers in the car." And then he asked, was we trying to pick up the hookers? And then the driver was like, "No, they just messing around and just yelling out the window." And he said, "Well, you need to keep your passengers in the car." And then they let us go, then the driver of that vehicle kind of mad at us because because he got pulled over, but it wasn't no big deal. He was just, what it was is the officer said that them ladies wasn't really hookers, they was police officers. And they just had a sting going on where they was picking up men that was actually trying to pick up hookers. And that's what the case was, and then he just let us go. But that was another crazy thing that me and a friend of mine did. And one time, me and him, this dude's name's Bobby. And one time, me and him went to a party way out John Kronk, and it was at a girl named Loretta, her brother's house, and his old lady his name was Ricky, and his old lady's name was June. And we went out there one night, stayed the night, partied out there for a little while. Well, the next day we start walking back home, and like we're out toward Dearborn, out John Kronk. So we decide we're gonna walk back. We're walking down John Kronk. It's a good ways. So my friend, he's a Mexican dude, and he decides he's going to hitchhike. So he sticks his thumb out, and a bunch of dudes pull over on the side of the road, and he was like up in front of me. And then when they stopped, he told them, "No, I was just kidding. Go ahead and go." And so they said some foul language to him or whatever, and then they left. I think they flipped them off and they left or whatever. Oh, they said they called him a wetback. And after they left, he was laughing about it. And I said, "What'd they say?" He said, "They flipped me off and called me a wetback." And I said, "What's a wetback?" And he said, "Oh, that's just a name they call, Mexican people, And I was like, why do they call them that? He said something about when they cross over the border in the water or something like that. And I said, "Man, that's crazy." And that was the first time I heard the name wetback. And then my friend explained to me what it meant, because I ain't never heard the word or didn't know what it meant. But that was another crazy incident me and him had. Also, me and him used to get inside there's two viaducts on Livernois in Detroit City. And these viaducts are up in the air, and they're train viaducts. Well, me and him used to, mess around in the neighborhood all the time and stuff like that. Well, we got inside the viaduct. There's a way you can get inside them viaducts, and you'll be inside the viaduct where nobody can see you, and you can actually walk through the viaduct. It's just the way it's made. And me and him did that, and that was really crazy because they could have been, they could have been birds, bats, whatever inside that, But that's something that me and him did. He also had a mini bike one time, and me and him used to ride through the neighborhood on a mini bike. And this mini bike had a Honda motorcycle seat on it. And used to cruise through the neighborhood, and, from his mom's house to his dad's house, and his dad lived off a junction, and things like that. But me and him did a lot of things together, and we just did some crazy stuff as young teenagers, and it was just things that you think about now. You think that, them were some not too good of decisions to make, with that things that we have actually did. But it's just a few crazy things I wanted to share with y'all on this channel that I did when I was a young teenager. And it was just, something else. But back in them days, young teenagers, they would do all different kinds of crazy things that, some of it didn't even really make sense to do, but we did it, you know what I mean? So it was just something else, just, to think back of the things that you did when you was a young teenager and things like that. But it was just crazy. But that being said, that's going to be it for this segment. And be looking out for our next segment. If you're not already a subscriber, make sure you subscribe, hit the like and notification bell, and be a part of the channel, grow with the channel. And we got another one coming up after this. So check us out and make sure you hit the like every time you see one of the videos. We appreciate you. We're out.